Good evening all. I'm Aditi Lamba with the Wednesday night edition of South Asian News, Vision of Asia. We are coming to you from our studio in New York City. Welcome to the show. Let's begin the episode taking a look at the coronavirus pandemic and its impact. The world has surpassed 137 million cases of COVID-19 with nearly 3 million deaths. On that, in India, home to many of our viewers, cases are surging across the nation during a steep second wave of COVID-19 affecting several metropolitan Indian cities such as Mumbai and Delhi. Government of India has issued lockdowns and curfews across the country and are asking all to remain vigilant and protect themselves. Here in the United States, we are at more than 563,000 COVID-19 deaths and more than 31 million cases. Cases and hospitalizations are increasing again, particularly in younger people with COVID fatigue and loosened restrictions. Experts are warning Americans about the next surge of the coronavirus in the country, even while the vaccination program continues to vaccinate Americans. In politics and more, President Biden today formally announced his decision to withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan by September 11th, the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks. Meanwhile, protests in Minneapolis continued for the third night in a row, with hundreds asking for justice for Daunte Wright, who was fatally shot on Sunday. We have tonight more on this and COVID-19 updates. Here are the headlines. Pause on Johnson & Johnson's single-dose COVID-19 vaccine, Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Kamal Kalsi, New Jersey. Veteran journalist Rohit Vyas on police shootings of Black Americans, New Jersey. Binder and Indian Consulate celebrate Immortal legacy of Lata Mangeshkar, New York. It's time for a short break on Vision of Asia South Asian News segment. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. I am Aditi Lama and this is Vision of Asia, Wednesday night episode of South Asian News. Let's take a look at the coronavirus pandemic update and measures. Health officials are currently reviewing a rare case of blood clots in people who have received the Johnson & Johnson single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration have recommended now a pause on the single-dose COVID-19 vaccine after 6 women reported blood clot cases among more than 6 million doses of the vaccine. Experts are saying that this pause in the rollout of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine is an important decision for vaccinants' confidence and improving long-term trust. Johnson & Johnson says that the vaccine benefits outweigh any blood clot risk. Meanwhile, U.S. COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations are increasing again, with COVID-19 variants worrying many officials are pleading Americans to stay vigilant. On this and much more, we spoke with Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Kamal Kalsi. Here is the conversation. What is this connection that we keep on seeing between vaccines and blood clots, and how are you observing this pause on Johnson & Johnson?
Yeah, you bring up a great point, Aditi, and this is how medicine and science works. As you get new information, you reevaluate. And so the CDC did the responsible thing, which is, if you see some complications, I think there were 6 cases, as you mentioned, of blood clots. And they're basically just taking time to figure out, is this a true connection between the J&J vaccine and blood clots, or is this just a unfortunate coincidence? So I think they're looking at all the data, and we should get a result. We should get some sort of results one way or another, and more information from them within hopefully another week or two. And if it ends up being that J&J causes a higher risk of blood clots, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily off the table. That means that you have to either try to find a way to mitigate that risk, either through aspirin or blood thinners, or a doctor talking to a patient saying, "Hey, look, there is some risk of potential blood clots with this." Like any medicine, there may be circumstances where the risks sometimes outweigh the benefits, and vice versa as well. It may be that some patients would benefit more from the J&J vaccine, and the risk of blood clots, if they're very minuscule, the benefits may potentially outweigh the risks.
These blood clots, what can they do to the body? What's the most dangerous thing that can happen with it?
The most dangerous thing is that you could die. There are, it just depends on where the blood clots might be. If the blood clot's in the leg, that's easily remedied by blood thinners. If the blood clot travels to the lungs and becomes what's called a pulmonary embolism, that can cause severe chest pain and difficulty breathing. It can cause lung damage. It can cause all sorts of respiratory issues. So I think there is a wide range of possibilities in terms of things that this could cause, in terms of what a blood clot could cause. Certainly heart attack and stroke are also on that list. But hopefully we find out that isn't necessarily a causal effect. But we have to find out. I found also very interesting and disturbing that that India may actually take the number 2 spot in number of infections pretty soon, overtaking Brazil.
Right. When we're looking at these blood clots and the issues we're having, AstraZeneca has had similar issues of blood clots, and they are right now on pause as well in many European nations. We're waiting for AstraZeneca's approval in the US. Is this similar? Is it the same kind of blood clots that we're seeing in this vaccine? And do you think it'll get approved in the US?
So I don't know exactly if they're the same types of blood clots. I don't have the access to that type of data. But I know that AstraZeneca also was paused due to blood clots and other complications. Do I think AstraZeneca will get approved in the US? I think pending further investigation, if they don't see any other complications, then I think it could get potentially fast-tracked for approval. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. There's a lot more to investigate. But people need vaccine. We here in the U.S. have been vaccinating people, between 1 and 2 million people a day, which is tremendous. I think the Biden administration has been doing an excellent job so far in getting the vaccine out. But we need something like close to 70% of the population to be vaccinated in order to achieve herd immunization or herd immunity. And with all these variants popping up, it becomes a huge challenge. And we, quite frankly, don't know exactly whether these how well the vaccines are going to fare against all of the variants out there.
Michelin star Indian chef Vyas has launched the Binder Indian Culture Center in the heart of Manhattan, New York. The center aims to be a hub for Indian heritage, arts, cinema, music, literature, and cuisine. The project is very close to the renowned chef who has named Binder after his parents' name, Bindu and Devinder. This launch of Binder recently saw a celebration and tribute to legendary Indian playback singer Lata Mangeshkar. Produced in collaboration with the Consulate General of India in New York, the virtual celebration included 12 Indian well-known artists and was curated by Sunny Tucker of Sneh Arts. Here are some highlights from the virtual tribute to Lata Mangeshkar featuring some very popular songs.
As we talk about India's legacy to the world, there's no one who represents that more than Lata ji. We are honored that we have 11 singers and 1 poet who will be giving tribute to the greatest artist from the soil of India. So Sunny has been curating music and festivals for as long as I've lived in New York. I've been hearing about him and I'm really proud to collaborate with him. So let's begin listening to the amazing artists who are a reflection of our son, Lata ji.
Namaste, warm greetings to all of you from the Indian Consulate in New York. We are delighted to be part of this launch of Binder, an Indian cultural experience which has been brought together by internationally renowned chef and India's star, Mr. Vyas. In this project, we also have Sneh Arts, which has been collaborating to take this initiative forward. As part of its launch, Binder is bringing to its audience for the first time tribute to the pride of India, Lata Mangeshkar ji. We have talented artists from across the world sending their favorite songs of Lata Mangeshkar ji. And this bouquet of songs, which will then be part of this project as a tribute to her, I wish all the artists, all the spectators, and all the participants the very best in the launch of Binder.
Namaskar friends. Welcome to Binder celebrates the immortal legacy of the one and only Bharat Ratna Lata Mangeshkar. What can one say about Baby? For me, she is my lifeline. Her music, her voice has always been with me in the times of happiness, in the times of sorrow. There's not a moment that passes by where I don't feel her with me. That's why I call her my Jeevan Aadhar. And curating a tribute for her was a very tough task. But we have tried our best to pay a humble tribute to such a legend who is probably born once in this universe.
Namaskar. My name is Sunaina Kachur-Bhide. I'm a poet, film writer, and a very, very big fan of Lata Mangeshkar ji. The impact and the influence of her music in our lives is as omnipresent as breath. We don't think about it, but it is always there. So it's almost impossible to capture the essence of her music in just a few words. But Lataji, here's my attempt and a humble offering to you. I hope that you like it. समय के प्रवाह से गुजरा झुलसा चंदन हुआ, भाव जब कागजों पे उतरा महका मधुबन हुआ, शब्द जब अर्थ से जुड़ा ठहरा अर्पण हुआ, आपके स्वरों से मिला संवरा और कुंदन हुआ.
ईश्वर सत्य है, सत्य ही शिव है, शिव ही सुंदर है. जागो उठ कर देखो, जीवन जो तुजागर है. सत्यम शिवम सुंदरम, सत्यम शिवम सुंदरम, सत्यम शिवम सुंदरम, सुंदरम.
नाम गुम जाएगा
चेहरा ये बदल जाएगा मेरी आवाज़ ही पहचान है कर याद रहे हो नाम गुम जाएगा चेहरा ये बदल जाएगा मेरी आवाज़ ही पहचान है कर याद रहे तुम्हें हमका हो संभाले तुम्हें हमरे रखवाले तुमरे बिन हमरा कौन नहीं तुमरे बिन हमरा कौन नहीं ओ दिन प्यार के आएंगे सजनिया तेरी बार लाएंगे सजनिया आया है संदेशा ये सवेरे वाली गाड़ी से मेरे दिलदार का हो दिन प्यार के आएंगे सजनिया तेरी बार लाएंगे सजनिया आया है संदेशा ये सवेरे वाली गाड़ी से
Well, it's time for another show break on Vision of Asia, Voice of the Community. We'll be back shortly. And welcome back. I'm Aditi Lama and this is Vision of Asia, South Asian News segment. We now have a conversation on the recent police shooting of Daunte Wright, who was fatally shot in Minneapolis this past weekend. The former police officer, Kim Potter, who shot him, has been charged with second-degree manslaughter. The former Brooklyn Center police chief has said that Daunte Wright's death appears to be the result of the officer mistaking her gun for her taser, which has sparked anger all over. Hundreds are gathering every night to protest against police brutality and endless killings of Black Americans. This is happening while Derek Chauvin's trial continued today for the 13th day, sparking more conversations on why a Black man, George Floyd, was killed last year in Minnesota. We spoke with ITV Go senior political commentator Mr. Rohit Vyas on this. Here is Mr. Vyas. My first question to you has to do with one of the biggest news that's concerning the nation all across, the shooting of Daunte Wright in Minnesota. Another shooting killing an unarmed Black person. Officer Kim Potter has been charged with second-degree manslaughter here. And that all happened at a traffic stop. My question to you is, how are you looking at this? And was this another case of racism, according to you?
And interestingly, it happened just about 10 miles away from where the trial of Derek Chauvin is going on right now. So it was very, what a coincidence, what a terrible coincidence and a strange coincidence. Once again, in my mind, this speaks to the extreme need and the urgent need for retraining of our police forces throughout the country. Police need to be retrained. They need to be retrained in methods of dealing with communities of color. They need to be retrained in sensitivity to people. But at the same time, police do face an extremely uphill battle each time they're out there risking their own lives trying to confront someone. All of this involves instantaneous decisions, split-second decisions, and therefore retraining is going to be absolutely necessary in my mind. This This latest shooting illustrates precisely that. She said she thought she had pulled out the taser, the officer concerned, that she had pulled out a taser and instead fired a weapon, a loaded weapon at this particular individual. How that happened, we don't know. I don't understand it. I don't think any person in their right mind understands it, because there's got to be a difference between a taser and a gun in the feel of it, in the weight of it, and things like that. So how did that happen is going to have to be investigated. So here was a question of, if the police explanation is accurate, this was an error of gigantic proportions. And how could a police officer not know the difference between a taser, and an actual weapon, a loaded weapon? Whether it's racism is still early to determine. This appeared to be a traffic stop. This appeared to be some kind of something that happened over there. We're going to have to find out what happened exactly between the two individuals, the officer and the individual who was stopped, and exactly what were the circumstances that led up to this. It's only then that you can determine if this was anything to do with race. But at the same time, you can't help but think it had something to do with race. And therefore, again, I go back to my initial point, which is the retraining, insensitivity, and the retraining altogether of police forces.
If she's convicted for the second-degree manslaughter, she will get about 10 years only. That's something that Dante Wright's family is really offended by. Do you think that's enough if you kill somebody?
They're going to have to determine whether they're going to go forward and push a court to, instead of introducing manslaughter, hearing manslaughter charges, a prosecutor brings the charges. But my point here is the family will probably ask for homicide. They'd want to charge this person with homicide rather than a second-degree manslaughter, which is a lesser crime, in the court system. And that's what's going to happen. According to the laws in various states, the second-degree manslaughter could charges, if the person is convicted, could lead you to between 10 years and 25 years of imprisonment with parole. So whether it's fair or not, that's the court system, and we have to go with it. It wouldn't seem fair if this was a deliberate act.
Right. And protest and outrage continues for a third night. I believe by the time we aired this interview, it may be the fourth night that we're seeing protests in Minneapolis. What kind of a message do you think is sending across the country? Are we going to see something similar to what happened after George Floyd died?
Well, once again, the problem here with the protests is the very first visuals you saw the next morning on television were stores that were looted, small businesses in the area that were completely looted, devoid of any of their properties, of their goods that they were selling. And once again, this reflects very poorly on those who protested. Because what were you trying to do? By protesting, what are you trying to do? Hurt other businesses? I mean, business people who had absolutely nothing to do with this. Those are people who feed their families. Those are people who, make a living day to day by trying to sell something in a small store, in a small retail outlet. So those are the first pictures you saw. As to protests and riots, very understandable. But I think the demonstrators, the protesters need to rein themselves in and actually hold a protest against the police. If it's the police they're targeting, go outside police headquarters, go outside other places, and show their ire and their anger. But you can't go about destroying businesses. I'm totally against that type of thing if I give my own opinion on it. But it seems like it's unfair to so many other people. One wrong doesn't make two other rights, in your opinion, if you want to do something, adverse, such as destroy property.
Well, this wraps up our show for the night. Please send us your suggestions and get your voices and organizations on our show. Email us on events@itvgold.com or follow us on Facebook at itvgold. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for free access to many of our popular shows. Thank you for joining us tonight from Queens, New York. This is Vision of Asia, and I'm Aditi Lamba. Take care and be well.